2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brandon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
My husband has legal charges. Am I crazy to stay?
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Brandon, how you doing, man? Oh, I'm living the dream. Just doing good.
Doing good. Good. I'm glad to hear it, man.
You know, I was thinking last year at this time, you know where we were?
Last year at this time, I would guess probably like St. George or something, but where
Puerto
were we?
Vallarta. We were out fishing.
That's right.
Yeah.
We were out fishing with a captain that I don't think was totally legal, and it was quite an adventure.
He acted legit, and then we got on his boat and he was running away.
He was running from the police
stuff. Yeah, but we caught a lot of fish and ate some ceviche that was amazing.
Yeah, it was great, man. I want to go back there now that you mentioned it.
There was like 1,000 whales there. It was nuts.
It was awesome. Yeah.
So anyways, we're here in the cold, in the winter, but loving that too. So
I know we're about ready to get pounded with like 8 inches of snow tonight.
I love it. Bring it.
So yeah,
bring the snow. So, well, let's get into our discussion today, because I think we'll have a lot to talk about, a lot of different directions to go with. So, Devin and Jen, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Great to be here.
Good to have you guys. Jen, why don't we start with you? Just a little bit of background of kind of what's gone on with you and where you're at, and just give us some context.
Okay. I was married for 14 and a half years to someone else, and his addiction led him to turning himself into the police. For the safety of the kids and my own boundaries, we left. I later divorced him and remarried. And then 3 years into our marriage, my husband got arrested for where his addiction had led him. Completely blindsided me. I had no idea that it had been going on. I knew there was some struggle in the past, but we were pretty open with our communication, and we had a really, I thought, healthy relationship. And I was really happy. We were floating on a cloud with our blended family. And anyways, he got arrested, and I really felt like the right thing to do for me was to stay. And so I started working recovery while he was in jail. So for 2 years during COVID, and he was in jail, and I started reading everything I could get my hands on, listening to all the podcasts, starting to get involved with other groups and helping women, working with 2 different nonprofits that help with sexual addiction. So and at the same time started sending him materials and really talking about recovery, getting really good boundaries in place. And then he got out and we got to start living it and start doing our own recovery. He'll tell you what he did when he got out, but yeah, I just plunged right in and started learning about what recovery looks like for a partner. So here I am.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's a lot in a nutshell there. Yeah.
Devin, could you just answer a couple questions here too? How long have you been out of jail for now?
It's been about 14 months.
About 14 months. Okay. So just over a year.
Yep.
And then just if whatever you feel comfortable with, talk a little bit about your side of the process that you just engaged in to go from wherever you started to where you're currently at now.
Yeah. And again, I don't think anyone assumes what they're doing is going to end up where I had ended up. So, I mean, I was exposed to pornography when I was 16. I had a friend show me a magazine, and then she also taught me how to go online, view it in a search engine, clear your history, that kind of stuff. It really took off my pornography addiction when I was in college. There was no one there to monitor the use of computers, and now you didn't have the dial-up, so it was fast, high speed. It was all free, so it exploded from there. A few years into that, I kind of realized, wow, this is not what I want, and I definitely got a problem. And so tried to just white knuckle it and stop. And so for the next some years, all the time, it was kind of ebb and flows. You know, I binge on it, and then I would purge it for a month, a year, you know, a certain time period, and then it would kind of creep back in, and I'd binge on it and then purge it again. And so, I mean, it was nothing too extreme. And a lot of people just kind of justify pornography as I'm not hurting anyone. It's just me, it's just myself. And so I think where it got towards the end here is you get kind of complacent, you get used to what you're viewing. And so you need a little bit more. So it's either you're viewing it longer or more time, or you're viewing something different to kind of get that same stimulation. And so with the blended marriage, our marriage was great. And that's the hard part people don't get. They're like, you seem so happy. And I'm like, I was happy. It had nothing to do with Jen. It was just this addiction kept grabbing hold. And with things like stress and a blended family, worrying about that, and jobs going crazy, it kind of became my stress relief, my feel good after a hard day kind of thing. And but with limited amount of time to view it, it became I need something more. So I had jumped into chat groups on Kick and a couple of other sites like that. And while in those chat groups, people would start sending images. And at first it was like, oh, no, you know, you kind of push it away and you leave that group and you go to somewhere else. And then eventually it just is there and you're like, I'm in a state where I'm going to, you know, test it out or whatever. So that's really kind of what happened is people would start sending things. You get caught up in this group mentality of everyone's sharing, everyone's accepting, everyone's whatever. And yeah, so one of the groups got flagged and then had gotten arrested a little bit later. So.
And you spent how long in jail? 2 years, you say?
2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What was it flagged for, Devin?
Underage pictures.
Okay.
People started sending pictures of teenagers.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what happened? Tyler, did you have more questions?
No, I was just trying to hear the other side of how basically, and I think Devin, you did a really good job of kind of painting the picture of this is not something that you like necessarily were like born with, that you were into like looking at underage pictures. It was kind of this slow fade, sort of like that was almost like an afterthought because you were already into the place of just looking for the way to get the next fix, get the next way of coping, whatever else that was. But then it ended up with this legal thing. And I imagine for both of you guys, and, you know, Jen, maybe you could speak to this. I imagine it was quite a process for you when the legal system became involved, and how much more that might have blown things up on both of your sides. And Jen, I'm just wondering what that process was like for you when that happened.
Well, it was difficult to say the least, especially because I felt completely blindsided by it. Like with my ex-husband, I knew that he had more struggles because we came back to it multiple times. We met with ecclesiastical leaders. It was an ongoing struggle, whereas with Devin, I had no idea. So when the legal system got involved, there was a lot of questions, a lot of frustration. And I think, like, prior to reading all these books and learning about addiction, I didn't fully understand. And as I started to educate myself on how people become habituated, how it is like a drug, and how you start with kind of an entry level drug and how you have to have more because you become habituated to what you've consumed. And the pornography is kind of the same way. Would you agree? Like in what you've seen, people have to act out a little more, and you look like you.
What you're talking about is called tolerance. So it's just like an alcoholic who drinks a 6-pack every day, starts drinking a 12-pack because, and I could get into it, the dopamine receptors in the brain need more stimulus in order to get the same excitement feeling. And so with sex addiction, it's really fascinating because it pushes people to either more explicit content or riskier behaviors,
novelty,
just different things. They have to push a limit in order to get that same hit. And I just want to highlight something here. In no way, Devin or Jen, am I hearing you justify this and say what happened was for this reason and it's okay. You just spent 2 years in jail. You took the consequence. That was not okay what happened in that chat room, right? You took that consequence. But there was a reason behind what got you to that point. And that's what we're trying to say is there was a reason behind this. And you're not a victim.
No.
However, you struggle with an addiction, and that addiction did push you into these places. And now you've dealt with the consequences of it. The beauty of it is that recovery is real, is that you can work a recovery process now and not find yourself in those same places. You do struggle with this thing, with this addiction. That's a reality, but you don't have to end up there anymore. And I'm curious, Devin, I want to hear about kind of your process of recovery, being in jail, and then coming out. How has that gone?
Honestly, Jen and I talk all the time. Getting arrested was probably the biggest blessing in my life. It was the very thing that just said, you're done. You've gone too far. And so it really was a wake-up call. One, to realize where I've gotten to, because again, you never think, oh, I'm going to get to this place. And even in that place, you never really think you're in that place. I think a lot of people think, oh, to find that stuff, you got to go to the deep, dark web. You got to search it out. And it's like, the way the internet is, it's out there. And a lot of people viewing pornography has probably seen it. So in jail, it was really much, here's what's important. Like family matters, God matters. Nothing else really matters. Everything you fill your time with is fluff. You work to get by. That's the only reason you work. Like gaming on your phone, computer, it doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't uplift. It doesn't make you better. It doesn't make anything better. It doesn't make families better. And so I really got that perspective of, this is the stuff I need to be focusing on. I need to be focusing on my family. I need to be focusing on God and my religion. And so prison, while it sucked, it was very much you can't act out. You're in basically a dorm full of 30 guys, so there's no pornography to view. There's there's nothing to do. So it was a very much forced sobriety, which was great. but I had had sobriety in the past. And so what made this different is Jen was really great too, doing her own recovery. And she sent me in books and pamphlets and articles and all this kind of recovery stuff. And so I started reading and processing that, really gaining an understanding of, okay, here's where I was at. Here's how I got there. Here's how this all built up. And then getting out was probably where my recovery really took off. When I got out, I got a C-stat right away. So
Tyler, did you
go to? Huh?
Sorry, we lost you there for just
you got a C-stat right away.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got a C-stat right away. And then I got a treatment, state mandated treatment class I had to go to, as well as I did a Pure Desire recovery group. And so I had all three of those things going on at the same time.
And Andy had an accountability partner, and we started doing our own recovery work together.
We did
as
like
well.
a couples recovery books and stuff. So I had all this recovery stuff, and it was like I was an empty vessel, just taking it all in, trying to really dig down to the nitty gritty. And I've learned a lot in just the past year. And I know it's a lifelong process that will never end. But I feel I'm to the point too, where now I can really kind of share my story, with you guys to better help other people who are in that same spot. Because in the throes of that addiction, you feel alone. Like I'm the only person doing this. I'm a horrible person for where I'm at, for what I'm doing. And that is really debilitating. And so I want to be able to kind of be that handout that to help people out of that. You're not alone. I've been there. Here's what you got to do. It's going to suck, but the end result's well worth anything you can imagine. So
can I just say, like, one thing Devin said was that it was what we believe is the biggest blessing that could have ever happened to us. I continually work with these women whose husbands, they don't tell their family, none of their friends know, and it kind of just keeps enabling that shame cycle. But for us, everybody knew, like, it never went public, like in newspapers and things, but our whole church knew, our families knew, all of our friends knew. And like, he now is fully known and people still love him. Like, when he had his sentencing, the judge was like, I've never seen this many letters from friends and family talking about Devin's character. Like, she was like, I've never seen something like this in my life. And I feel like for many of your listeners and for their wives, that if you want to get out of that shame cycle, start stepping into the light, start sharing your story and being a resource to other people who are struggling, because they feel alone. So many people feel alone in this, and it's not healthy. I don't know. I just encourage you. Don't be afraid. People will still love you, even though you've struggled.
That's what heals all of this, is the light, is bringing it out, bringing it up. And it actually makes connection to God, self, and others possible. Jen, I want to be a kind of a annoying naysayer here and just hear your response to this. Your husband went to jail for acting out, serious, charges of acting out. You're crazy for staying with him. Like, what? He's going to hurt you again. He's going to do this again. You're stupid and you're crazy. What do you say to that?
So that's something that I feel like people are saying to me very often in a roundabout way. And I kind of have set up my own boundary around this, is like, I appreciate your concern, but you don't know my whole story. You don't know Devin's whole story. And most of these people don't understand real recovery, and they don't understand addiction and where it goes and what it looks like. A lot of women have the fallacy that it's their fault and that they're the ones who caused this. I know I'm not the one to blame. I've worked my own 12 steps. I know that addiction is ugly. So like, what do I, most of the time I have a boundary set up when someone says something like that to me. Like, I appreciate your concern, but
You know what's interesting about that judgment, Jen, is in a way what they're saying is that there's no space for forgiveness for him, and there's no space for looking upon his heart. And you just go by what happened and you judge him and you don't forgive, and you should just get the heck out of there because of that, right? And it's you have a really fascinating story, Jen, because you've been on both sides of this with your first marriage and now with Devin. Like, you had boundaries and you protected yourself and you got out.
But I would say, though, for that first marriage, I did not understand boundaries. And I talk a lot about this with people. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize how boundaries work and how the consequences work and how you need to have a follow through for yourself if you don't hold your boundary. It's a whole kind of system on boundaries that I would encourage listeners to go dig into. But I would say with my first marriage, I didn't have that boundary. I didn't understand what that was. I didn't understand the difference between sobriety and real recovery.
Interesting.
Like, I've come a long way myself, but yeah, I agree what you're saying. Like,
but this is really interesting. So the way you handled your first marriage, you would say you were kind of in an abusive situation where it's like you didn't know how to have the boundaries, be empowered, step up. And now here you are with Devin with healthy boundaries and staying with him, right? Which creates love between the two of you and support because you're interdependent, standing on your own 2 feet. I'm sure Devin knows that he can't walk all over you right now.
No.
Right.
So like, even his recovery group ended this week. And yesterday I said, I'm enacting my boundary. I love you and I trust you. And I'm not triggered right now by like you not being in a group, but it's my boundary that you need to continually have recovery groups to go into. And so like before the end of the day, he was signed back up for another recovery group.
Nice.
Because it's my boundary. I want to feel safe in this relationship. It's not you. It's not anything you're doing, but this is my boundary now for me to stay. Right. Sorry.
Yeah. Otherwise, sorry, I won't stay.
Sorry.
And that's the part that's your boundary is I won't stay. It's not twisting his arm. It's that I need that for that extra like peace of mind. Now, Jenna, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to kind of, I don't know if you can put language to this or not, but this is what Brandon was saying. It's actually a really good opportunity to hear the difference between maybe choosing to leave, because I know our listeners are going to want to know this. How do you know when to choose to leave and when to choose to stay? Because it's not about a guy going to a group that's going to make that decision for you.
So I help with a nonprofit, and we just did a 2-part episode on like divorce and when do you choose it? I don't know if I'm allowed to like refer to that here. It's called Fight for Love. You can go here. I was on a panel. There were 3 of us where we talk about, and we have kind of different stories. So it's good to get a perspective from a few of us. It's called Fight for Love. And so when do you choose to stay? There is not a solid answer on that. I can't just give you a blank statement. Here it is, because I'm staying with someone who is in the legal system. But for other people, that might not be the right answer. Like if you aren't in a safe place, that's the number one thing. If you are being abused, that is 100%. You need to go get help immediately. Like that's no questions asked. Like if if your children are not safe, like you need to take care of that. But honestly, it's between you and your higher power. Like that is where it comes. I 100% would encourage women, you need to find legal, like professional help first. Like I wouldn't give up on a marriage if you haven't sought out some kind of counseling or talked to an APSAT or a CSAT. I think that you need to learn about what addiction is. I wouldn't just give up on a marriage if you haven't really studied what this is. Go and read Wired for Intimacy and go and read and listen to all of your podcasts. Go and dig in and educate yourself and then start thinking about those decisions. I don't know if that's helpful, but you can't just, everyone is so different. Everyone has different attachment styles. And there's like the woman I was talking to last night, her husband has a ton of post-traumatic sin because he's been in the army, and like, there's so many different components. I don't feel like I can answer that. For me, it was between me and God. And this was asked earlier, like, how did I respond when people were asking me those questions? I felt like I had time. I didn't feel like I had to decide. And so people would ask me, like, are you going to leave him? And I'm like, I don't have to decide this right now. I didn't know how long he was going to be gone, but I knew that I needed to start figuring out what this was. I needed to start doing my own recovery, and I had time. And I also even have time now. Like, he's out and he's working recovery. Like, it just depends on how he is and how he's working his recovery and how I'm working my recovery.
You're not forced to stay in.
I'm not forced.
No,
I
every
know.
day you can choose to be in.
Okay, I did everything on my own for 2 years straight. We had 3.5 acres. I took care of everything. I took the lawnmower apart. I did everything, worked full time, took care of my 4 kids. While I know that I can do it on my own, that's not why I stay. I stay not because I'm codependent, but because I know we can do it and it's worth it if he does his work and if I keep doing my work.
So you said a couple of things, and I want to just maybe shrink it down to a couple of principles so that our listeners can hear too a little bit of what you said. One is for sure safety. You needed to know there was safety, and you also are able to stay because you got support, the right kinds of support that allowed you to then start to see the landscape a little bit differently, other than just the knee-jerk reaction of people saying, leave, right? But then there's this other part, and this is the part that I often hear when people choose to stay and everyone thinks they're crazy and it's healthy. They stay because, number one, God tells them to, but number two, they start to feel a shift in their partner, and they sense humility, they sense accountability, they sense transparency, and they see this effort start to take place. And there's something about that actually is very reassuring and goes, hey, this is worth fighting for. If that stuff's not happening, most of the time it's hard to choose to stay because then you don't have the hope, and you risk going to that other side of that codependent relationship of getting stuck in an abusive situation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I would say I 100% saw that from Devin. I would kind of test the water. I would send him a book, and I had already read the book. And I'm like, okay, what is he learning? What is he gleaning from this? Like, what is he taking? What are his actions? Like, his nickname in jail was the chaplain because of the work that he was doing with the other inmates. Like, every Friday was haircut day, and he would stand there for 6 hours cutting all the inmates' hair, things like that. Or sometimes we would fast, and he would go donate, and he would get other people would fast with him, and they would donate their food to the other workers. And he was just constantly teaching other people and about addiction and about faith and getting through things, because a lot of these people that he was with had never had any hope or any help. Yeah. So yes, I 100% saw that. And I still look for that today. Is he making his calls? Who is he reaching out to? And it doesn't even have to be related to the addiction always. This week, he's helping a woman fix a hole in her wall. He helps people drywall, just because he wants to be helpful and good. And so, yeah, I don't know.
There's Devin, I want to ask you this. Mm-hmm. I love what she's saying right now. There's a big difference between doing all those things to put on a show for Jen because you need her to love you.
Yeah.
Versus letting your true self come out, and that self being a service-oriented, loving man who just is a good man, right? Mm-hmm. And all the things Tyler just mentioned of humility and just working your recovery, all those things are fine, but there's also something else that she needs, which is strength and healthy masculinity. Mm-hmm. And that shows up not through compliance, that shows up through you understanding who you really are. And my question for you is, what is the difference for you between sobriety and just making sure you're sober and don't end up in those bad places again, and actual recovery?
Yeah. So sobriety to me is I'm resisting it. It's there. I have the urge. I'm just choosing not to do it. Where real recovery is, here's why I wanted to do that. And that's really kind of something I've learned is I'll have moments of stress, high stress or high anxiety or something like that. And now I can sit back and be like, this is a time I would have wanted to act out. I don't have the urge to act out, but I can recognize my own emotions and I can process it in a way now that I can recognize this is where I'd want to self-medicate, And so recognizing that allows me, one, to be vulnerable and sit in my feelings, which I hated. I mean, that's one thing I was never good at, was expressing emotion, sharing emotion, showing emotion. And so I always wanted to be in a happy state or present that I'm in this happy, good place. And now I feel okay not being okay,
So you're honest about not being okay. Like you're showing up as an honest man is what it sounds like. Do you feel like you've dealt with the wounds, like the deepest wounds that have perpetuated this, that have driven it?
I felt I've dealt with a lot of them. And again, with the recovery groups and with the CSTAT accountability partners, you're able to kind of process it a little bit more. I think I've pinpointed and recognized the main ones for sure. And I've been working on them. Now, I think as you do recovery and as I heal these big gaping wounds, you can kind of find some smaller ones that you'd be like, oh, I didn't realize that was even a wound, or that was even an issue that would have contributed to this. And that's kind of where I'm at now, is kind of finding those smaller ones that most people wouldn't look back and say, I have wounds. Like when people ask me what happened in your past, I'm like, my childhood was great. I had no issues with childhood, no abuse. My parents were never divorced, all that kind of stuff. But then looking back at the small things, I never saw my dad cry. Unless it was like a spiritual matter. You know what I mean? We never talked about emotions or hard parts of the day. I never saw my dad ever get mad, which is funny. I've seen him get mad twice in life. One when my older brother was being a jerk to my mom, I guess. And one when we accidentally recorded over his Beatle anthology tape. Right?
Well, hey, there's good reason for that one.
Exactly. And not that that's bad. Like, honestly, I think that's a great attribute. But as a kid growing up, it kind of gave off the not meant to be, but you can't share emotion here. Yeah. Right? We don't express emotion. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of what had me hold back emotion or be able to express it. Yeah. And so I think that contributed a lot to it. Is I'm not feeling fine and I should be feeling fine because everyone around me seems to be feeling fine. So something's wrong with me. I need to do something about that. And so that's kind of where that medication came from. So anyway, as you go through recovery, you'll really start to dissect those parts of your life and really kind of understand them. And understanding them, I think, is what really becomes the recovery process. Avoiding it is like patching the leak in the sheetrock of the ceiling, but not in the roof, right? It's still going to keep leaking in.
Right.
And so, but in addition to that, not to keep talking, I'm sorry. I think that full honesty and openness is really what does it. So the addiction thrives in secrecy. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle with recovery, is they want to do recovery, but they keep little bits of secrets back, right? So getting arrested was very much, here's a whole disclosure, unwilling to the whole world.
Whether you like it or not. Here it is.
Whether you like it or not, here it is. And so as I did my recovery, we then did a disclosure together. And I think that initial disclosure, everything's pretty much out here, let's just go through all of it, was really freeing. I mean, it's really scary because the whole part of addiction is I got to hide this part of me because I will not be loved. I will not be accepted if someone knows this about me. If they know that I started looking at pornography as a teenager, all these things, whatever it may be, it's really scary. You have this mindset that my wife's going to leave me. And here was the disclosure going into jail, and she didn't leave. And so I think that was kind of comfort reassuring of, I can be open with my spouse the way I've always wanted to be open, but never felt I could. Mm-hmm. And so I think hopefully that's another reason she says that she sees that openness, that honesty, that I'm not hiding little bits of anything. Again, I think even people might go through disclosure or might, get found out by their spouse, but they want to keep certain parts back. I don't want them to know this part. I'll let them know this part. And that is really unhealthy. That is sobriety. That's not recovery. Like, it's all got to be out there. It's all got to be in the table. Yeah. And that's when you can truly move forward with recovery.
Can I just encourage the men out there? You can be fully known and fully loved. It's a real thing. People, you can tell your wives. I mean, the things that these wives tell me about what their husbands have done, and they're still staying with their husbands. Men, you can be fully known and fully loved. It's a real thing.
It's the scariest thing, but probably the most rewarding thing. Because now we have that platform, that foundation to really build our relationship to what it can be. And I think, again, we had a really good relationship before, and now seeing how much better it can be after all that, really scary, absolutely worth it.
Well, I do want to say what you just said, Jen, like that is true. And you have done a ton of work to be healthy enough to truly hold space and love him. And I think it's important for both partners to both see each other and be transparent, hold space for each other's pain, like be healthy enough and strong enough to hold that space, and be healthy and strong enough to be seen and vulnerable in the relationship. So it's two sides, right?
So I've done 12-step work, and they'd like to talk about the canoes. You can't get in your husband's canoe and row up the river for him. You have to row your own canoe, and he has to row his own canoe, and together you keep moving up the stream. And I've always really liked that. But I also wanted to say, it takes work. Like many women don't, or partners, I'll just say partners, many partners of people who have a sexual addiction don't feel like they have any work to do. If he just got better, and if he just did this, and you go to treatment, you do this, and then this will be over and we can move on and live our life, that it's not true. Like the other partner has work to do themselves. You need to learn about your own acting out. That sounds really weird to a lot of people, but a lot of women or partners, when their husband comes to them and tells them that something's happened, they often don't respond very well. They have kind of like these flight or fight kind of like lower brain kind of reactions. And if you start doing your own work, even though that sounds crazy, you'll start to learn how to process and how to actually be in recovery with your husband, instead of kind of, if you don't do your own recovery, you almost like make it worse sometimes because of the way you react to them acting out. And you start to learn what some of these fallacies are and how to have healthy boundaries. And yeah, it's crazy that you have work to do too, but it sucks because a lot of times you're tired and you have kids, and
it's not fair. Yeah.
And it's not fair, but can I just tell you, it's so worth it. Yeah. It's so worth sitting beside your partner who you guys together have gone through the hardest thing that most couples have ever gone through, and you're better for it, and you're closer, and you're still best friends, even though you've gone through this horrible thing.
Yeah. You guys are here speaking something that I think is awesome for people to hear, that there's hope here when certain things happen. And we always talk about the need for a his, a hers, and an our recovery. And if only one does the his or the hers and you stay, then you end up in an extra codependent relationship. But if you get two individual people who are actively coming to know, I believe, who they are through God's eyes, they can choose into a relationship where they can become more with each other than they would without each other. But it's because they're both offering the knowledge of who they are to the relationship rather than the need to take from one another to find out who they are. And you're kind of like just describing that really beautifully right now. And you can almost feel the energy. I wish we posted our video here, because I'd love to see the look on both of your faces as you were talking, Jen. You can tell that there's deep feeling that you both have for what you're saying here. I'd like, you spoke to this a little bit earlier, Jen, and Devin, I'd love for you to chime in on this as well. How have you navigated your relationships with the things that have become so public? Because let's be honest, like I used to live like where we'd go to church. Our neighbor was in the legal system, and then he was part of the sex offender registry. And I saw how he was treated at church or in the neighborhood or by certain people. How have you guys managed your relationships after all of this has come to fruition?
I'll start. I think again, I think a lot of people will view people who are kind to me or still friends with me in a negative light sometimes too, because, well, how can you talk to him? Don't you know what he done? But I think there's the thing people forget. I can love a person in spite of their sin, not in their sin. So I can love the person as the person and not love the action which they did. And I think a lot of people construe that and think that to love the person, I need to love them, all of them, the good and the bad. And it's like, I can love them for who they are. So I think a lot of people have been really good, again, understanding the atonement and really knowing that you do get the people who are just like, I've lost a couple friends through this, and it is what it is. And if that's the case, then they weren't really that good of friends. And I hate to say it that way, but you can really tell who your true friends are. They know who you are deep down. They've seen that. They said, wow, you've made a dumb mistake. Like I had one friend that said, I don't know if I want to hug you or punch you. And I was like, you could do both. Like both would be reasonable response.
They'd be appropriate.
And yeah, he's one of my best accountability partners. We check in every week. We get together and play games and just talk and about life and past struggles and what we're doing now and goals for the future. So it will get you down as much as you let people get you down. I know when I go to church, there's going to be people who have that mindset, who have that attitude. But I don't go to church for them. I go to church for me, and I'm there to worship my higher power, and I'm there to become better in any way I can and learn what I can from it. And people can think what they think. And that's really hard for people to get over, is that what are people thinking? What are they saying? What are they talking about? Like, to get that feeling of, I don't care, because that doesn't affect my recovery. I'm doing everything I can, and they're welcome to think whatever they want. And they can probably even say something, and that would probably hurt, if someone actually says something or something like that. But again, it's not going to stop my recovery. People are welcome to think what they want. And it is a hard thing to get over. And I think it's harder for me, not for them to say it to me, but the fear that Jen or my kids or her kids are also being judged because of that. Mm-hmm. That's probably the hardest part for me, because I can take it myself, but I don't like the fact that something I did causes them to have that.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I give a lot of grace to people. I don't know what they've gone through in their life, and I don't want to pretend to ever know that I know where they come from. And so I try to let it go. It's hard though, sometimes, feeling judged. Like sometimes I feel like they think I'm stupid for staying, mm-hmm. But I really have to remind myself that they don't know Devin. They don't know our whole story. And if they did, I bet you they would be okay with it if they really knew it. Mm. I don't know. It's really hard though, sometimes, to just let that go. But I think I'm doing a pretty good job.
And one other thought I was thinking too, it's interesting. A lot of the men are really encouraging to Jen. You're awesome. Way to do this. And to me as well. And I think largely because they can kind of view in themselves, like, I've had this struggle. That could have been me. Something along those lines, where the women, I think, have the knee-jerk reaction of, he did what? Or how could he do that? I would have left. Just kind of those knee-jerk reactions of something must be wrong with her or something, whatever the case might be. But the women were a lot less accepting. And I think mainly because they don't quite understand the addiction. The guys, I think, understand the addiction because they probably experienced it or struggled with it themselves. And so they kind of get that viewpoint. And it's sad how the women don't quite educate themselves on it, especially with every guy has probably struggled with it. So I think a lot of people choose to kind of sweep it under the rug, like it's not really there. Or, he had a problem, a while back, but it's no big deal. And they don't want to look at it for what it is or what it could be, which is really hard. We're here, we are being like, get educated and get to this point, even if it's not an issue now, it might be in the future, or maybe was in the past. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that's just one thing we've noticed.
I just want to, something Jen said a while back, highlight it, like we're not saying, let's say a woman divorces her husband as a result of addiction and things. Jen, you could trigger her because, she should have stayed and look, Jen's doing it and blah. No. That's not what you said earlier. You said this is individual and this is between you and a higher power. And you divorcing might have been the right thing for you to do. And so Jen's progress and her recovery and her love toward Devin, can we celebrate that? Can we just look at this as something that's pretty awesome, no matter what perspective you're coming from and what, your life experience has been? I can feel recovery today between the two of you. I can also feel love between the two of you, even beyond all of the stuff that you've been through. And I think that not only are you creating love between the two of you, you're actually blessing the world now with this story that you have. And so I really appreciate you coming on our show and sharing this. And I'm sure it's brought up a lot of different emotions and feelings for a lot of people and questions that they have. And that's okay. And that's why we want to have these discussions, so that they can look at themselves and say, why am I having these feelings? What does this, tell me about me and where I'm at? So really appreciate you guys today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just about up against time. Is there any last things on your hearts? Jen, we'll start with you, and then Devin. Anything else you guys want to share or express today?
I just kind of wanted to follow up with what Brandon just said right there. Yes, some people might feel guilty for not staying in that marriage, but you have to remember, I left a marriage. Mm-hmm. I've done both. And whatever it is for you, that's your story. That's between you and God. And you get to decide that, and you get to listen to that. And it doesn't matter what other people think. You need to stay true to what is right. If you've educated yourself, if you've got professional help and you feel like that's the right thing to do, don't let other people's judgment bring you down.
Right.
It's between you and the Lord. And I guess that would kind of be my final little thing to say, Devin.
For me, I would just say work recovery. I mean, it's a lifelong thing. It will be working recovery for my rest of my life. But there's such freedom and joy in that. It's scary, and a lot of times you don't want to do it, and it's hard, and it's painful. But the overall benefits is huge. Again, especially to be able to be open and known with your spouse is life-changing. And so I hope people hear this story and have encouragement of, hey, I want to work with my spouse on recovery, and I want to work my own recovery, and not, at least I'm not as bad as that guy. Right. That's my big fear is, well, at least I didn't get to that point. So what I'm doing is okay. It's not okay in any form. Pornography changes everything in your life. So, and in aspects you probably don't even realize have an effect on it. So work recovery, get in recovery, be open and honest. It's freeing and it feels great.
Yeah, well, it was a real gift for us to have you guys on the show to share your story with things that are typically so private and not being willing to talk about. So thank you guys for coming on, and for our listeners, thank you for being here. If this was impactful for you, please make sure you share it with other people, and we appreciate what you do.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.